Welcome to Your Ink Story, a podcast exploring what humans have in common through the stories behind the body art folks wear. I'm your host, Ande Lyons, and I hope these ink-spirational short stories, sharing the heart behind tattoos, fascinate you and leave you feeling more meaningfully connected to humanity. This is Season 1, Episode 27, and our guest, Mia Voss, a mouthy and opinionated brand ambassador, live streamer, podcaster, and building inspector, reveals her tattoo journey, starting with her first tattoo in the early 90s while living in New York City, to her latest profound and empowering tattoo she got in Guadalajara, Mexico. Now, I've known Mia for 12 years, and you'll hear me gasp out loud as Mia shares her first 3 tattoos very few folks know about because they're carefully placed in a very private place. Welcome to Your Ink Story, Mia Voss. I'm so delighted you're here to share your ink stories. How you doing today?
Hi, darling friend. I'm doing very well. I'm excited to talk about my ink.
Yay! And please, before we get started, let folks know where you're from and how you glow in the world.
I'm currently in Denver, Colorado, which is where I should be most of the time, but yet I'm not. Traveling all over the place. My best way to describe myself is mouthy and opinionated, and that comes out in several different ways. One in building inspection, live streaming, brand ambassadorship, actionist, community-based. There you go. You know, once you go
That's
through a downturn, you learn to have a lot of buckets.
absolutely. And you are multi-talented goddess. And listeners, I've known Mia for over 12 years. We've collaborated on many podcasts and live video shows. So I am super thrilled she's here to share her ink story. And you're going to hear how it's never too late to get a tattoo. So, Mia, let's dive in and begin with your tattoo origin story because I didn't see this coming, and I know you pretty well, and you're very out there online telling everybody what you're doing, what you're up to, and taking us all on the journey of life with you. How did this happen? What inspired you to put art on your body with permanent ink?
Well, I love your tagline that it's never too late to get a tattoo. And I'm going to modify it for myself. It's never too late to get the right tattoo.
Ooh, tell us more.
I feel like I'm this sort of graveyard of outdated tattoos a little bit. I'm in my late 50s, and my first tattoo was in the early 90s. And you may know my friend Heather Fink. She's been featured on some of your other past projects, I believe, and on mine as well. We worked in the cosmetic industry back in the early 90s in New York City. So Heather is just this bold, wonderful woman. Shout out to Fafa, as I affectionately call her. So she gets this tattoo. We're the exact same age. So the early 90s, we are, let's see, 26 or 27. And in New York City at the time, tattoo parlors were outlawed.
That's
And
right.
so, right. And so you had to do the whole get the connection type of thing, have the friends that knew someone who knew someone. And so Heather shows up to work with this just beautiful, almost like this black orchid on her back, on her upper back. And it's just stunning. And I was so taken by it. So she told me the name of her tattoo artist, and I think it was 91. So there's no way this old bitty brain could recall who that was and actually where it was. I know it was somewhere in the East Village. So I make the phone call and set up this appointment. And then you have to call from the payphone downstairs to be buzzed up into this like walk up
Wait, wait,
almost
say what? The
building.
what phone? The pay phone?
Hello. Tell me you're in your 50s without telling me you're in your 50s. Was it wireless? Nope. It's literally the Clark Kent payphone back in the day. So, yes, and that was my first tattoo, and that was also my first lesson that I've learned now in menopause of the placement of tattoos, that sometimes when you get a little bit of that post-menopause weight gain, you're like, "That's kinda cut in half because it's on my lower back a little bit," and I just absolutely adore it, but I've been like, "I can't see that tattoo as well." So, it was a lily, and it didn't have any color, but I absolutely loved it, and it was in the lower back, but sort of of the upper part where you didn't really see it unless you had sort of a crop top on. So it wasn't the tramp stamp situation. But
Well, that was going to be my next question was it in a tramp stamp location? So they can have a
no,
little
ma'am.
peekaboo, a little something, something on when we had those hip huggers that
God,
Madonna got us wearing again in 91.
I'm so grateful to say no to that. It's more of in a kidney punch location. But that
And
was my first experience. I
folks
waited a
say so,
while.
as you continue to flourish in life and people would see it maybe if you had a little bikini on or as you got to know folks better, did they say, what's that, Mia?
Can I be really inappropriate? Especially in intimate moments. If you had a certain position, be like, that's a great tattoo. Ooh, I'm making myself blush and I'm cracking myself up.
That's okay. We understand this here in your ink story. And listeners tuning in, do you have one of those tats that you got a long time ago that's in a certain position? You're like, nobody knows about this. I know when we were talking with Jennifer, I think it was episode 11, about when she got her first tattoo, she made sure nobody could see it. She even tried on the bikini underwear to make sure it was put into a place. But she evolved, and as she became more self assured as a woman, her tattoos kept getting bigger and more out there. And listeners, if you haven't heard episode 11, be sure to go tune into Jennifer's wonderful stories. So, Mia, you got that tattoo and you lived with it for quite a few years. Were you ever thinking about getting another one? Was it in the back of your mind?
Yes, and I believe I waited. It's interesting, and I know a lot of your previous guests tell these stories of these origin moments. And when you were just talking about that, I was also thinking before this last tattoo that I absolutely adore. Again, sometimes it takes a while to find your favorite one. I would say these were all intimate tattoos. So the one on my back, and then I didn't get another one actually for a couple years, and it's certainly one of those almost like when you get your boyfriend's name tattooed on your arm because it's in my hip area, and I was dating someone how I got to the person how I got to Colorado, and we got these matching tattoos so that when we were uh, hugging or pressed up against each other. His was on the left side, mine was on the right, and they would smack at exactly the same spot on our bodies. So we thought that was a really wonderful kind of intimate thing to do. It's a goofy ass tattoo. It's literally like a little half moon and a star, and I'm here for it still. I love it. So you really only see it again if you see me in a certain moment. And now people will know who have seen me, like, oh, that's what that is.
Oh my gosh, I love that, something fierce. And listeners, I've known Mia for 12 years. I had no idea she had any tattoos. Okay. And this has been the beauty of launching this podcast, Your Ink Story. I launched in August of 2023. The folks that have come out of the woodwork with, I have tattoos. I'm like, what? I thought I knew everything about you. I
Yes.
didn't know that.
And you're such an adept storyteller and you're great at pulling things out of people. So what a wonderful way to get to that next level of, I mean, for lack of a better word, I'll say intimacy of
Right.
just these, as I've heard from your previous guests, it just, there's so much heart and soul and emotion into these, or just hilarity of like, look at this goofy ass thing.
I know that. Well, I think it was episode, I want to say, folks, episode 18, maybe, with Dylan, Fred Ricey, who talks about how in recovery, like in the halfway house, this guy had his needle and his tattoo equipment, and Dylan would be like, yeah, I'm in, let's do it. No thought at all into the
Right.
tattoo at the time,
Just
or certainly
random.
when he was under the influence of
Sure.
substance, putting things on his body. And we will have future conversations, listeners, about cover up tattoos and how that's done. And sometimes how you have to get laser done ahead of time before you can step into the cover art. But Mia, this is so fascinating. And meanwhile, they're in hidden parts. So it's not like your family is going, what do you mean you've got a tattoo? Or other people are trying to judge you.
Sure.
Nobody knows about it. So tell us what happened next, because this is like, first of all, listeners, I've already heard about 2 tattoos I never knew about.
We got one more to go, and then we'll get to I've got 5 total, they've
Oh
all got
my
a
gosh, this
a
is
good
so exciting.
a good story. The next one was in 2008, and, everybody has these just pinnacle moments of change, and I had just gotten a divorce, and had just bought my first big girl house by myself. I'd owned houses with my ex-husband, but not one of my own. And so I'm also a bit ashamed to say that it's a cultural appropriation tattoo because that's what we were all doing back then, which is a Japanese symbol, right? We thought
Yes.
that was the thing.
The
And
thing.
so I got one to match on the other side to sort of offset it. It's beautiful work and oh my God, super painful. This little part
Oh,
on
are
the
you
inside of
kidding?
your
Ouchies.
hip, yes, kind of like on either side. And the work was wonderful, shading work too. So that's a whole other super duper. What's your guess that has the
Oh, Painless Picasso,
painless
everyone. Be sure to
Picasso?
check it out because
Shout
it doesn't
out.
have lidocaine, which is a toxic ingredient. Yeah, you didn't have that when you were getting this tattoo in that very sensitive area.
No, ma'am. And I didn't know lidocaine was toxic. So now I'm learning something new.
Oh,
I love
yeah.
it.
And what happens, Mia, what I've learned from Jamie is a tattoo artist who is also a fireman with the New York Fire Department, FDNY. And he has launched a company called Painless Picasso. And what he learned and what he shared with us on the podcast was that lidocaine, if you like want to smear it in, right, just because you're going to be doing a lot of area, or if you're getting waxed or you're getting laser, that goes into your system and you can OD from it. And so,
Okay.
Mia, what was the Japanese symbol that you got? What does it look like?
It means honor.
Okay.
And I just was really feeling of like honoring myself. So there really was a beautiful story behind that too. But it's just gorgeous. I can't describe it, but it literally is a symbol that's about 3 inches high, maybe 2 inches
Mm-hmm.
wide. And it really was quite painful. I was like, ooh, the other one hadn't been that, but it's that sensitive area. So sussing out, and this is where Jamie's product comes in, but where you can withstand that. But I also felt like the pain that went with it for that was wonderful. But again, I will readily admit the cultural appropriation of symbols of a
Right.
culture that's not yours on your body. I do still want to honor that, and no pun intended,
Mm-hmm.
say that that was something at the time. Again, this honoring the outdated is really what I felt this episode is about, culminating in the two that I absolutely adore.
Well, and it's so powerful. And this is what we hear again and again on these wonderful ink stories is the milestones, the posts in the ground, so to speak, that the tattoos are providing for your life story. So you can permanently see it on your body and be reminded, because sometimes these feelings can fade away. And especially when you're coming out of something where you took a stand for who you are, you put a bookmark in that chapter of your life. And you're really, in this case, you were honoring that journey, honoring buying your first grown up girl home and doing all the things. And you wanted to have a tribute, a memorial, a timestamp, whatever for that time, because there's going to be more moments in your life, listeners, that will be so significant. They may overshadow some of those other moments that were so big at the time, right, Mia?
Absolutely. And honoring leaving a marriage that was not serving me, even though it was 2008, that still was a tough thing. And then to be in I believe I was in my early 40s at the time. And that definitely takes something where you just people, why did you do that? And so then
Yeah.
you have this tattoo to honor that.
I love it. So, Mia, then you proceeded forward for quite a few years. I know you've had five. So, we've learned about the lily, and we've learned about the moon and the stars, and we've learned about the honor symbol. What came next?
So 14 years later, 2022, I really had waited a while, not for any particular reason, but was always inspired by just how many people were being so much more out loud and proud about this beautiful artwork. And then living in Colorado, we have wonderful tattoo artists here that I have not even had a chance to visit because my next tattoo happened, or my next two happened in Guadalajara, Mexico, after I had attended a week-long ayahuasca retreat. I'd really gotten into plant medicine in 2022, starting with Kambo, which is spelled Kambo, in March of 2022. And then I found this wonderful retreat called Mexisol retreats in outside of Guadalajara. Found them honestly on Instagram, following the hashtag combo. So I still think there's so much power in following the hashtags of something that you're interested in to either find someone new or be inspired by artwork, products, things like that. And so I had them on my podcast. It's called Shit We Don't Talk About. And then I thought, you know what? I'm going to go do this. This was a full year that I'd spent about almost 2 years single after a breakup. And I really wanted to, you get sick of your own shit. Like, I'm going to spend some time on this. And so plant medicine in 2022, but specifically again, culturally appropriated plant medicine, because it can be put out there as just this cutesy little thing. Plant medicine is the unsexiest fucking thing you'll ever experience, folks. Like, if it's cute, you're doing it wrong. You're at the wrong place.
Right.
And so I went to Guadalajara and spent this wonderful week in this retreat that is, I'll give you a link to my blog post on it, that was just filled with these beautiful flowers and people and experiences, and painful, but also just a wonderful experience. And then on my way back, I went with some of the facilitators that were staying in Guadalajara, and had decided, actually the night before, I sat in this beautiful little area where we were having our meals and drew out what I wanted for my tattoos. And I thought, this is what I'm going to do. And I want to go to the artist that these wonderful people that I've met have gone to. So I go with them to Guadalajara, and my wonderful friends take me to their favorite studio, and they speak with the artist, and then they had to go and do a couple other things, and he doesn't speak English at all, and I speak very little Spanish. And so I relied on Google Translate. But I have to tell you, with Emmanuel, and I'll give you the link to his Instagram, it's Uno Aguila _TTT. UNOAGUILA _TTT. And oh my goodness, it was just life-changing. And I ended up getting this very large tattoo on the inside of my leg, right above my ankle. And it's just my favorite thing in the whole world. I also got a beautiful bougainvillea flower with a heart on my back. And I will say that one doesn't stand out for me as much, because I needed brighter colors. You really do need to have somebody who pays attention to your skin tone, because the skin tone on the inside of my lily white ass leg shows color so much better than my back, where I've gotten sun over the years. And so I'll probably have the one on my back redone. But this tattoo on the inside of my leg is this enormous heart with an eye in the middle of it. And I just see it as just seeing my way forward. And the thing of getting this tattoo, and I got it in November of 2022, in this such obvious place, felt so bold and empowering. And I didn't even realize the power of it until this past summer, because I got it in November. And of course, it's chilly and everywhere I was in Denver, it's cold. You're wearing boots and socks. And so really started to reveal it in the spring and summer. And it's just been this wonderful journey. Remember standing in Costco and not really paying attention. I saw this man and his wife walking towards me, and he's looking at me, and I'm like, well, that's, sir, no. And then he stops. He goes, that tattoo is amazing. And it just lit up my heart and my mind, and just like, thank you for acknowledging it. And I feel like it's this eye that sees my path forward.
I love that. And listeners, I'm with Mia right now via video, because we're using a webcam while we're recording the audio. And Mia, your face lights up when you talk about this tattoo. And to know that you can look down and see it, or have the random connection with a stranger in a Costco because they took a look at your tattoo and felt that connection, and it ignited a conversation that you had with them, as well as the connection. It's so wonderful. And that is the power of body art and tattoos, is that it can create a magical moment where you meet a random stranger and realize that you have something in common with them in this human way that's so powerful.
I did have some feedback from someone that I had told them that I was getting this work done. And of course, the whole thing with Mexisol and going to this retreat, one, I go by myself. Two, it's only people I've met online. Three, I'm going to do intense plant medicine, ayahuasca, combo, bufo, samadhi. These are very out of body experiences, and you need to make sure that you are with people that are very, very safe. So not only am I not
And
doing
trained.
and trained, and then the sourcing and the shaman that gets all these, he sources it himself. So he goes down to these different places, and so it's really wonderful. So please, if you're going to be doing any of this kind of work, you really, really have to do your homework on it as well. But again, here I am telling my parents and my family and friends, I'm just going to jet on down there until I got back. And yeah, but I agree. I mean, I'm going to do what would be considered, pretty intense drugs, and then I come back with this ink too. So
What happened to Mia while she was away? She was doing this wonderful, these beautiful processes through plant medicine with these experts who know how to take you on these journeys for deeper self-awareness and personal growth. But then she comes back with this big old bold tattoo. And of course, loved ones immediately go, ooh, what happened down there?
Sure. And the interesting feedback I got from one person when I told him I started to tell you this was that he said, and I don't know why he felt the need to clarify this, and he never did it again. Well, cool. Well, as long as it's not somewhere, I guess, where people can really see it. I was like, oh, sir, au contraire, it's right on the inside of my leg, and it is enormous and to me, and bold and absolutely beautiful, and the power, and even one not apologizing or feeling badly about it, but saying, "Oh, no, no, no," the opposites.
Absolutely.
And
And
there will be
on
no more
episode
discussion.
8, folks, we talked to Christian, who at the age of 18, he said, I want respect on my neck. And the tattoo artist was like, say what? Are you sure? And he's like, absolutely. I
Mhm.
want to filter out the people who are going to have a problem with this. And that is part of the destigmatization of body art. What are
Mhm.
your thoughts about that, Mia? What other things can we be doing to help destigmatize and bring the bold and the beautiful, and really see that that person who chose to have body art, for the most part, is expressing something that's really, truly, and deeply important to them?
Well, you know how bat crazy I am about you, so I feel like this podcast in and of itself just has started a really wonderful conversation, and I can see that your guests that you talk to also light up, because depending on their age, they have been coming from the stigma. Certainly people my age, women, I mean, even back then
Mhm.
when I got it in the 90s, there was definitely more of this sort of trampy type of attitude towards ink. And I know a lot of people have discussed that in past episodes too, of there really being as this stigmatized ideal of it. So I do think making sure, I love the beauty of who you get the artwork from, like me speaking with these people that I just been through this wonderful experience with, and wanting to sort of further that by getting work done by people who had done their work. So that beautiful connection and symmetry with them. And then I also think, yes, being super, super bold about it, and having this on my leg, I'm so pleased with how much I don't regret it. And I really didn't. I was like, I don't know how this is going to go for me. And from the second I saw it, it's like when you see a newborn baby, I'm like, I love you.
It's like, boom,
I
this
did.
was meant for me.
Hmm.
And
Right.
it speaks to my heart. It speaks to my soul. It speaks to how I be in the world. And you brought up a really good point, Mia, about the intimacy of having that experience with your tattoo artist. And yes, they're at the conventions. They can do one in 20 minutes on your body, but still, you are in their space. They are in your space. They have needles and they're doing art on your body. The connection is important. And we heard when Savannah from your wonderful Denver, Colorado area on her back tattoo, it was 2 years, once a month, that she would meet with her tattoo artist for a session to get that back tattoo art done. And that's a long, intimate journey. And to the destigmatization, listeners, you're going to hear soon from Andrew Degar, who is in the health services area. He's a genome scientist, and he full sleeves on his arms and his legs, but he put on that button down cuffed shirt, held his arm up in the air to see where the cuff came down on his arm to say, okay, we can start the tattoo past that point because people can see me. He's also has a jiu-jitsu studio where he trains and all. And of course, then his tattoos are out, Mia. But at the same time, when you're showing up in the corporate world or in the medical world, I'm surprised to hear how many doctors, lawyers, nurses all have tattoos, but they're carefully hidden. And I think the fact that you've got your bold tattoo out there and it feels so good. And when you get to look down and you see it again and again, you're like, I love this tattoo.
I want to just throw in there too, looping onto what you just said. I feel like it's become the opposite. The appearance of tattoos used to trigger people of saying, oh, this person is unsafe or unsavory or whatever you'd like to add into that. And I feel like now when you see the little peak of the tattoo or something, you're like, oh, what's going on there? And it's just this beacon of safety or acceptance. And you see that. And I feel the tide has changed and is moving towards that even more so now, that when you see that, you just like, you feel like there's a part of that person you don't know and you want to know even more.
Exactly. And listeners, to that point that Mia just made, since I've launched the podcast, I come from the startup world. I'm a 4 times founder and a global startup mentor. And so when folks learned that I was going to start talking about tattoos and the stories behind them, they were like, say what? But then the next thing I'm getting are emails and text messages. Well, I just sat down beside someone on an airplane or the bar or at an event, and I saw their tattoo, and I finally felt comfortable to ask them, because I have been curious, but I have felt uncomfortable asking someone about their tattoo. I feel like I've been given permission. So this is the beauty of asking someone about their body art and finding that connection. So I just love this conversation. And I love the fact that all these years I've known you, I had no idea. 5? I had no idea you had 5 tattoos, Mia. I just knew about the most recent one. So thank you for sharing your wonderful stories. And listeners, you've got to hop on over to Instagram so you can see the reel of Mia's beautiful, gorgeous, empowering tattoos, the most recent one she got, and her wonderful tattoo artist. Please visit Instagram at Tell Me Your Ink Story to see her reel and get inspired by her wonderful tattoo journey. Mia Voss, I am so honored that you came on and thrilled that you joined me to share your beautiful ink stories with us. I'm grateful for your inspirational insights about the art of tattoos and the heart and beauty behind your tattoos. You've helped us connect more deeply with each other throughout this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, darling. It's been delicious.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Your Ink Story. Please rate and review this podcast wherever you are tuning in. And if this episode inspired you, please share it so we can all feel more connected through our common humanity and lived experiences. If you or someone you know would like to share a meaningful ink story on the podcast, please send me an email, Ande@yourinkstory.com, along with a brief description. Feel free to share your thoughts about this episode via a voicemail message by visiting yourinkstory.com. And when you get to the website, just tap the podcast mic icon located in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and leave your message. Until next time, I'm wishing you a delicious day everywhere you glow. Cheers.